Hello, this is the Deeds of God website, third presentation concerning the subject of how the human body seems to resemble holy things spoken of in the Bible. Today, and on this film, we're going to discuss human teeth. There's ways in which human teeth are kind of amazing in how they resemble the two covenants, the covenant of Moses and Christ's new covenant. Here's a couple thoughts about it. These are just subjective. It's not spoken in the Bible. May not even be right. But it is something interesting to think about because it almost looks like there's something designed into us. And maybe you'll agree. When we're children, we get 20 teeth. We call them our baby teeth here where I live. They're deciduous teeth. As with deciduous trees that lose their leaves, these are the deciduous teeth that we lose as we age. There's 10 on the top, there's 10 on the bottom. They're covered with enamel skins. They resemble the Old Testament's covenant, the Mosaic covenant, in a few respects. Here's some of them. They're like shiny, pure white tablets of stone. Well, we don't know the exact look of the 10 Commandments, but God called Moses up to the mountain, and God gave him tablets, and God wrote on them. So he came down with the 10 Commandments, and he saw a bunch of evil going on. They were worshiping a golden calf. His brother Aaron had allowed it. He became angry. He threw down the tablets. They broke. Moses resolved the problem with worshiping the false idol, but he had to go back up to the mountain. He took with him this time 2 blank stone tablets, and God wrote on those, but Moses brought them up from the base of the mountain. So in the old Mosaic covenant, we had tablets coming down from the top, tablets coming up from the bottom. We had 20 in all. The 10 Commandments were written on them. There's 10 on the top, 10 on the bottom. If you want to read about them, you can go to Exodus chapter 20. We have 20 total children's teeth. You can read about the 10 Commandments, the first covenant, in Exodus 20. Kind of interesting. The Old Covenant Christians believe was totally replaced by the New Covenant, Jesus' teachings. They were about the do's and not the don'ts, you might say, in short. But the new teeth that replace the old teeth, they come like this in general, most cases. There's 16 total on the top before we're done, and 16 total on the bottom before we're done. Well, that's 32. We get them like this. We usually get 28 teeth, and then as the years go by, our wisdom teeth come in. 4 wisdom teeth. So in all, we get 32 teeth. The new covenant is interesting because Jesus' number is essentially 8. A lot of eschatologists believe that the number 8 relates to Jesus' life, ministry, name, etc. in so many ways that it just is Jesus' number. Hebrew boys were circumcised on the 8th day. It was prescribed by law. That's a sacrifice only a son can make. It's the cutting off of the flesh of the son. When the flesh was cut off, I don't know. You can go on and on with this, but that's one case. And Jesus himself had a very significant 7-day week that led up to his death and crucifixion, but on the 8th day, a Sunday, he rose again. So there's another way that 8 relates to Jesus, and there are more. But we learn about Jesus' new covenant through the Gospels and the book of Acts. Well, the book of Acts is 28 chapters, and as I said, we get 28 teeth at first, 14 on the top and 14 on the bottom. And then there's the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. We get 4 wisdom teeth. The Gospels, those 4 books, are the books of Jesus' teaching, Jesus' wisdom. So we get 28 and 4. The book of Acts is 28 chapters. The Gospel, the accepted Gospel, is 4. It seems that there's a connection of sorts. Another interesting thing is, God decided to give us 20 teeth at first, and then later 32. Well, that adds up to 52. And 52 is a number of fullness, the fullness of the week. There's a phrase, the acceptable year of the Lord, you know, when great things will happen. Well, God just happened to match that sense of fullness and completion in His design for our teeth. Now, should these be related to each other? Is there anything holy in it? It's all subjective. It is all conjecture. But, you know, back in Moses' day, the unrighteousness of man, his nakedness, so to speak, was covered with animal skins. Teeth, as mentioned, are covered with enamel skins. Did the language occur by accident, or was it developed, so to speak, by God to sort of suggest something? That one's probably a little weak, but it is there. Here's something I think is more interesting. From the very first word in a Protestant Bible, from the very first word in Genesis to the end of Leviticus, what happens is man is created, everything's created. We sin, we're thrown out of the garden, we become evil. The angels, some of the angels, 1/3 of them come down following Satan, rule as, you know, tyrants on earth, from what the old writings say. The flood becomes necessary because the world's so evil. God floods the world. Noah and his family are allowed to escape, you know. They land after the flood is over. Life continues. Nimrod comes. His plans are defeated. Abraham begins to walk the earth in faith. His family evolves. Eventually, we get to the point of Jacob, Isaac, Jacob, on down through to Moses. And Moses leads the people out of Egypt under great acts of God on behalf of His people. The Red Sea is crossed. They go to the Promised Land. The Mosaic covenant is given out and implemented. You know, God gives them the Mosaic covenant. They begin to live by it. And that pretty much rounds out the first 3 books of the Old Testament to the end of Leviticus. So from the first word of Genesis to the last word of Leviticus kind of describes why the Old Testament, or why the Old Covenant became necessary and how it was brought about and implemented. And it happens to be 117 chapters. That's the Old. The New, we learn about it in Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and the book of Acts. And by the end of the book of Acts, the New Testament is given out and implemented. The church is up and rolling, you know. That also is exactly 117 chapters. So you got 117 chapters to put the Old into play, 117 chapters to put the New into play. And interestingly, if you look up how many elements there are in the creation, you know, how many elements on the periodic table of the elements, these days some sites will tell you 117, others will say they may have discovered the 118th element. Maybe it is 117, who knows. But for these and other reasons, it seems as if human teeth have a certain resemblance to the Old and New Covenant.